Welcome one and all to Umami Manga. I'm Petter and this is James.
Hi.
And today we're talking about volumes 11 and 12 of Vinland Saga. That's book 6 if you're like us and reading the English physical books.
How I've struggled to get you in my hands, book 6. And you're finally here.
Finally.
2 of you, actually.
Oh yeah, you got 2 accidentally.
Yeah. Whoops.
But this book, I will just kind of generally, I'll say first off, I love how much went down and kind of just how much suspense it gave us on, like from so many different characters' perspectives as well. Was just a lot of fun and just super exciting to me.
Absolutely. And, you know, it's kind of the tale of 2 halves where the first one kind of deals more with the Canute side of things and, you know, his struggle. And then the second half goes back to Ketil's farm. I wouldn't say it's just all Thorfinn because it's really not mostly Thorfinn. It's probably mostly Arnheid and how she goes through her backstory and whatnot. So I really like the new characters and the current characters that get more depth. It's just a lot happens and it ends on kind of a precarious note. Like there's looming doom on the horizon that the people on the Ketil farm don't know, like they're not aware of.
Right, yeah. And they've already had like a bunch of drama there, but there's even more to come and they don't know it. Yeah. It's just as I said, exciting. It's so exciting now. Probably the book that has left me the most excited by the end so far in the series.
Ooh, I think I agree, yeah.
But yeah, then let's get into the characters, starting with Thorfinn. And actually, real quick, before we get into, I guess, the actual contents of his story in this in these 2 volumes, the summary at the start of this book gave us a hard confirmation finally that he was 6 when his dad died, which we had assumed that that had basically been our standing assumption.
Right.
But to know for a fact that that's what his age was is good. It's good to know. So that was in 1002 that he was 6 years old. So that means that now in 1018 he is 22 years old. So just good to know, I guess, the main character's age right now. But yeah, he and Einar finished clearing out the forest. At the very start of this, and
it was a little time skip.
Yeah, right. Oh yeah. And we had talked about like it would probably need to get up to this year before he would meet Canute again. So yeah, that made sense. But it was so good to see Thorfinn smile like that, you know, with Einar. Like that was, oh my god, just so wholesome and
so happy.
Made me made me happy to see that. And also on that during the dinner they had at Sverkel's house, when they were laughing and seeing Thorfinn like that, like trying to keep himself from laughing, and it was just like such a cute moment. I really like that as well.
Yeah. Oh, that part is so great. Oh my gosh, just everything about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, you kind of get this just happy, harmonious moment that Thorfinn really hasn't had it in a long time. Since he was a very young child. And now that he's kind of finally accepted and feels like he's growing as a person, he can finally enjoy life a little bit. And I'm glad to see him just kind of cracking up, you know?
Yeah, it was
life's little joys.
So sweet.
But at the same time, he's also thinking about some of his ideals and what he wants in his own life. I guess what he wants for the world.
Yeah.
And part of that is ending warfare and slavery. And it makes sense for what he's experienced in his past, you know, and how he kind of views humanity and life in general.
For sure. Yeah, and this was kind of what I was kind of wondering about last time when we talked about the previous book, when I asked kind of how he's like in what way he's going to be a true warrior, and it seems like this is his plan. Kind of, this is how he's going to go about it. Because for him, it's not just about leading a peaceful life. Like that in and of itself is not enough. he wants
Right.
to atone for his past actions by kind of
Yes.
actively making the world a better place. Like he needs to make up for his sins and then some.
Right. And not only that, but he kind of puts it in a way where make up for the destruction with life and creation.
Yeah, right.
I like, yeah, I really like that aspect. Um, and think that's a wonderful way to, or a wonderful way of going about atoning for your mistakes.
Yeah.
Instead of living in regret and, kind of passively, you live proactively in a way that benefits uh, the world's, or I guess creates a life versus
Mm,
takes away.
for sure.
And and I guess he leads that up with building a tiny village. So we kind of have a goal now that he wants to build a village where they can live in peace.
Precisely. Yeah. And obviously Vinland came back into the discussions through that.
Right.
But it reminded me of Knute's vision of creating paradise on Earth. Obviously, they come from
Mm-hmm.
different kind of angles, but I still feel like it's similar in several ways in how they want to create this. Well, yeah,
Absolutely.
their idyllic world themselves.
As I've said before, I think a theme that has kind of been from the very beginning is
Mm,
finding paradise or creating a paradise,
yeah.
yearning for that. And I think it definitely makes sense thematically that Thorfinn would reach a point where he remembers Vinland and
Hmm.
then seeks out after that paradise.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's gonna be exciting to see how he's gonna go about all of that further down
Hmm.
the line. Obviously, he's not quite
Yeah,
ready for it yet, but or
I
he's
mean,
a slave, but
these are kind of the first steps, if you will. At first,
Mhm.
it's recognizing what the goal is or setting a goal, kind of.
Exactly. Yeah, and I love that. He's back and he's motivated and he has he said he gave himself this goal in this book and yeah, it's awesome to have that. Especially after the previous book which is, throughout most of that he was mostly pretty ambitionless.
Right.
Um but speaking of similarities with Knut, there was another one that I noticed where kind of both of them are well, they're haunted by the dead, although in different ways.
Yep.
But I thought that was interesting. Obviously, with Knut having his father's head, and
Hmm.
and we knew from the previous book that Thorfinn has these nightmares where all everyone that he's killed are talking to him, and plus there was Askeladd who appeared in this book as well. But that was also kind of a different thing.
Oh, that was the one I was thinking.
Mm-mm.
And I guess maybe being haunted is not quite the right word. Although
Mm.
I do agree that Thorfinn is very much haunted by those that he killed.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
With them. Yeah.
I think it's more so that their inner monologues and their thought processes are portrayed by individuals from their past. Their father figure. I know Thorfinn has an actual good father, but
Yeah.
they're other father figures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and Sven is definitely um, Canute's kind of father figure in a
Actually,
way.
if I can just get in a quick point, actually, that made me think about is that what's funny is that with both of these quote unquote father figures, it's their bad father figure that they're seeing.
Ah,
Both of them had a better one. Both of them
you're right.
did.
Hmm. Hmm.
uh, so yeah, let's not forget about Ragnar.
Right, right. No, no,
uh,
you're right. Eh, I guess I guess maybe I took a little too far with bringing up the father
no, but
figure
it's
thing.
good. I think it's still it is a similarity.
But I think more so it is similar is that their inner thoughts are being personified by
Mm,
this person from their past.
right.
Um, and I guess the kind of one of the last things that those persons told them for Ascalon, it was the true warrior, and what Thorfinn is realizing, at least for him, what that means. And then for Canute, it was the curse of the crown, and
Hmm.
that seems to weigh kind of heavy on his mind.
Yeah, definitely. I thought it was interesting to learn that Thorfinn has taken an interest in Christianity now. Um, and like
Yeah.
it's nice in the way that, well, at least I think it's nice in the way that it shows that he has an open mind, and he wants to, well, I think he wants to be able to understand different perspectives.
Hmm.
At least that was my idea as to why he seems to have this interest in it. Because he seems to be working on himself, on bettering himself right now,
Right.
and in this part of his life. So that's why I guess I had that idea for the reason why he was so curious about the Bible.
I think it also helps that the passage Snake was reading at the time,
Mm,
I think resonates strongly with Thorfinn's current mentality.
that's true.
You don't have any enemies, or not just that, but love your enemy just as much as you would love the people who love you.
Hmm.
And I think that kind of teaching is something that Thorfinn would want to apply to his own life, or is trying to. Now, I'm not saying he's going to get baptized, become a Christian, right? Anything
Mm.
like that.
I mean, who
Because I
knows?
think well, I guess who knows? And Christianity was very popular at the time,
Yeah,
and
it's growing.
yeah. So I guess you're right. That could be where they go. But Yukimura does mention that at least in one of his, it was either one of the Q&As in one of these books or in
Mm.
one of the like just passages like a forward or a just a notes that he put down. He said that Thorfinn was agnostic or just didn't have any religious beliefs. So I don't know if he was talking about the historical Thorfinn
Mm.
or if he was talking about the character that he's creating currently.
Right, that's right.
Um,
Yeah, because there are
so I don't know.
a lot of similarities, but there are also a lot of, or at least a couple of differences comparing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's yeah. I actually don't remember that, so I can't comment on it. But yeah, that is interesting. Uh, but in general, it seems like he's interested in Christianity as a whole, and not necessarily just this passage that we saw here, because based on Einar's comment, it seemed like this wasn't the first time that he was listening to the
That's
Bible
true.
passages.
That's true.
Although obviously that passage that we did see obviously is very tied to the stories and like the themes of the story.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Good point.
but well, something that made me really happy. It was a small thing. Uh, it was how Thorfinn recalled Hordaland's "Somewhere Not Here" monologue from chapter 2,
Right.
and
Let's go.
it was just kind of there and then
She's
gone.
back, barely.
I don't know. I don't know why I'm so stuck up on
So I
Hordaland.
forgot her name while I
Ah,
was rereading it. Like I remember when it was. I remember it was like, oh yeah, that's Hordaland when I first read it. But then rereading, I couldn't remember for the life of me. So I
mm,
looked up because I didn't want to see spoilers in case she pops in the manga again. So I typed in Vinland Saga anime Thorfinn, and I was trying to find that scene where he's talking to Hordaland.
hmm.
And so I finally saw Hordaland in the anime, and she looks a lot different.
Oh, really? I don't remember.
I feel like
I see.
than almost like someone in their 20s versus someone who is supposed to be the same age as Thorfinn.
Huh.
Um, that was kind of weird.
I see.
Uh,
Well,
and so I thought, oh, maybe that's why Petter likes her because of the anime. But if you don't even remember what she
uh,
looks like in the anime, then,
yeah, no, yeah, very vaguely, or yeah.
also there's some shots of Thorfinn that look kind of weird in the anime. Like,
Oh,
well, you're the one who's seen the anime.
yeah. Oh, well, okay, yes. But as I said, I remember it really vaguely,
Yeah,
like
it's
strangely vaguely. It's
the
weird.
character design is definitely not one for one. In some shots, it actually looks good. In other shots, it's kind of like, what?
Yeah, it's a
What are they
mixed
doing
bag.
there?
I think it's yeah, and yeah, and like I think something I remember pretty strongly that I didn't like was the occasional use of 3D animation, which just kind
Mm.
of really clashed with the 2D, and it didn't meld well at all.
Well, with this Crunchyroll Funimation merger, I assume Vinland Saga might be on Crunchyroll now, so I'm gonna
I don't think
try
it
to
was on
see.
either of those platforms before. I think
Are
it's
you sure?
I yeah, or well, I'm quite sure. I think it was on or is on Amazon Prime. I think that's the only place it's streamable, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. I think that's the case though. It's yeah, it's not easy to get by if you don't have that.
Dang. Okay. Well, anyway, that was just something that I noticed because I was thinking about that scene and then I looked it up. But maybe there is hope for Hordaland returning.
I hope so.
Who
Actually,
knows?
I mean, I don't actually. Well, I'm gonna say I don't think so, but I hope so. Is gonna be my statement on that, I guess.
It does seem kind of odd that he would bring it up,
Mm.
or that Yukimura would take the time to bring up that specific
Well,
scene.
I could see it being just because of her monologue back then, which in and of itself was really profound, and I think her monologue from back then is the reason why I remember her so fondly and why I like her so much. But it's because I think in the moment when he remembered her, obviously it was very much about that, like his conversation with Einar in the scene in this book reminded him of his meeting with her because she was talking about the same things, and the two of them kind of shared a very similar dream. And I guess with that in mind, it would be really cool to bring her back into the story just because of that shared dream. But I don't know. It's well, they are in Denmark now, and that's where he met her. So I guess
Right.
I
Exactly.
guess it wouldn't be out of the question completely.
Yeah.
I mean, I would be happy if it happened, but I'm not gonna keep my hopes up, I suppose.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
But yeah.
By the way, you're exactly right. It is on Amazon Prime, and I have Amazon Prime, so it's like,
Oh,
why
you
haven't I
do?
watched this yet? I thought it was on Funimation.
Nah. Well then.
Well,
Then you can
I'll
watch
have
it.
to fix that pretty soon.
I should rewatch it. I really should. Especially before season 2. Although season 2, I don't think it has a release date. It's probably not going to come out until next year at this point. Or I
That
mean,
makes
I don't know.
sense.
'Cause I used
Sorry,
to
my
think.
voice is really cracky right now.
Oh, don't worry about it. I used to think it would come out this year, but it still doesn't seem like it's that close. So I'm probably gonna expect next year.
Fair enough.
But Mappa is taking over from Wit with this one as well as Attack on Titan. So I don't think we mentioned that on the podcast before. But that was just a fun little thing I thought.
At least that's the room. Has that been confirmed? I don't remember.
I guess I don't know it for sure either, but I think it seemed pretty certain, at least from
Right,
what
I agree.
saw. But anyway, yeah.
If it is Mappa, then it'll be. I feel like they tend to get a character designer who goes very similar to the source material.
Right.
So, I mean, I haven't seen Wit's take, so I need to go watch it all the way to see how I feel. But I really admire Yukimura's art design. So I think having it be as close to that as possible, is probably ideal.
For sure.
Maybe just me.
No, I totally agree, and I definitely trust in Mappa to do it well if it ends up being them to do the second season. I mean, at least I personally was a big fan of their job on Attack on Titan when they took that over from Wit. So, I think it'll be good. Although speaking of Yukimura's like character designs, I love them.
Oh, you're right.
Although I have two
I
have two little nitpicks about the way he does.
I feel like I know where you're going, but
one of them is the ears that are often very big. I feel like they are.
That one I didn't see coming. Okay, I guess so.
Like you don't. I guess you don't. It took me a little while to kind of before I started noticing it, but once I did, I started seeing it like pretty much all over, like just these massive ears. But I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating a bit, but I feel like they're bigger than most other artists. Anyway, that's one of the things, and the other is that I feel like he draws the faces beautifully, but I feel like he kind of has a set amount of faces that he draws.
Yep.
That are kind of very similar to each other. Right. So I guess while I love his art style, there is that thing. Yeah.
You're right. And I feel like it's especially for the women.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's confusion on who I'm looking at exactly.
Mm.
Um, and so yeah, there is a Yukimura face.
Yeah, right. I mean, which is fair. I think Isayama has that to a degree as well. For example, with
hmm
Attack on Titan, he had like a set amount of faces, kind of that
O-
appear.
Oima definitely has that. She
Yes,
has.
you're right.
I mean, she's able to have different faces, but you could distinctly tell. Okay, that's her face.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah, totally.
Her
And
her type of face.
I guess, yeah, and series. Honestly, I feel like probably most artists have that. I think
True.
Arakawa does as well to some extent.
Oh yeah,
You know.
absolutely. She has a certain look that she will reuse.
Yes.
Um, but yeah,
So.
and a lot of manga artists have something similar, but it varies.
Hmm.
So sometimes it could it's not just a style, but it's just how they share similar facial features, and so it's hard to
Hmm.
differentiate between the characters. For example, this last example I'll bring up.
Yeah.
I don't remember who the author is, but have you ever read or seen Claymore?
I haven't. I've only looked into it, but I haven't seen or read it.
So I started reading some chapters, and I'm not a huge fan of his style
Hmm.
or their style,
Hmm.
and I think they run into the situation where a lot of the main characters, the sword users, the claymores, they're all women, and they have very similar faces,
Oh.
and it's only the haircuts that help you to determine who they are
Okay. Yeah.
some of the times. So
Right.
that one I'm kind of like, it kind of gets in my nerves a bit.
Uh huh.
So I don't think it's that bad. And not to say Claymore is bad, it's just that kind of puts me off, and it's not great in my opinion. But I
Hmm.
think Yukimura does have that kind of fair criticism where
Yeah.
he does have similar faces.
Hmm. Hmm.
So long story short.
Yeah. No. No. But I think we can agree there. Yeah. That said, obviously he draws the faces that he draws them beautifully.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I think yeah, definitely one of my favorite artists. Very
Mhm.
good.
For sure, for sure. Anyway, back on Thorfinn, maybe there's just a little bit left. I
Yeah.
have one thing left at least. It's Thorfinn's fight with Snake. I just thought was
hmm
just really cool,
Yeah.
and how it really showed how much Thorfinn is starting to resemble his father now, from the dilemma that he had before the fight began, and to the unarmed fighting style that he fought with, and it was also cool to see how the stance kind of hints of his weapon of choice from back in the day
Right.
and all of that. Just fun to see how he he has hints of his father, but he also has hints of his previous life, I guess.
Yeah. I remember we were talking last time about would he ever actually fight again.
Mm.
Um, and maybe that was more in book four. I'm not sure, but this definitely answers that question that he's decided to take a similar uh, take or a route that of his father, in that he will fight to protect people, um,
Yeah.
to protect the peace, and I think that's totally fair and
Hmm.
probably a necessary action in certain terms.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'm glad we got to this point, and I'm excited to see where his resolve goes from here.
Totally. Then let's move on to Arnheid next. We learn in this book that she's Swedish. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
finally we know that we have some Swedish characters in the story. Obviously she's been in the story since book 4, or since the end of book 4. But now we know that we
hmm
have some Swedish characters. So for me that's fun. Uh, Also, the settlement, well, we didn't necessarily get the name of the settlement that she was from, where she and Gardar was from, but she did mention when she lied to him about where their son was.
hmm
She
His
mentioned,
his brother,
yeah, was it with his brother or with his cousin? I can't remember. His brother probably,
something like that.
yeah. But anyway, right, that their son was with him, and that was back in Birka, which I don't know if that's supposed to be also the same town where they were from. or if that was a different nearby city or village. However, I thought it was really cool that they mentioned Birka because Birka is or was or well, to my knowledge, it's one of the most famous places like that was kind of active during the Viking Age, and it was basically a trading center, kind of
Hmm.
handling goods from all over Scandinavia and also like many parts of Europe. I'm pretty sure. So like it was a pretty like well-known kind of international place in Sweden. And actually the area where it was located is basically the general area where I was born. Where I kind of well, I lived the first 5 years of my life in that area of Sweden before I moved down to the south, kind of, or
Hmm.
well, my family. But that plus that's also the general area where Stockholm is located today. So
Okay.
that's kind of where Birka was. So yeah, I just thought it was cool that they brought that up because Birka is like something that any Swedish kid learns about in school because it's just such during the Viking Age it was like the center kind of uh, trade and stuff like that in Scandinavia.
Awesome.
Yep.
So yeah, it's cool that kind of have a understanding of her backstory and how it connects to Sweden and everything. That's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah. But yes, as you said, yeah, her backstory, getting that in this book was just so good. Like,
So, quick question though.
mm,
She says that she was in a settlement in Sweden,
mm.
but did they speak the same language? Like,
Yeah, I think all of Scandinavia, like Sweden, Norway, Denmark, Iceland, I think we had. Well, I'm sure there were dialects that differed, in
hmm,
different regions, but overall, I think it was the same language. It was what is
gotcha,
known today as Old Norse.
gotcha,
So
gotcha.
through in that entire area, in this entire area, it was basically the same language. And still today, I think our languages are still similar.
Hmm.
And I can have a conversation with a Norwegian person, for example, and we will be able to speak our own languages while
Mm.
still, for the most part, understanding each other. And so obviously back then, like 1,000 years ago, it was even more similar than it is now.
What about a Danish person?
Uh, Danish people, they have a special thing where when they speak, it sounds well. There's this stereotype, this kind of, it's almost become like a meme thing, I think, where people
Uh,
say that Danish people sound as if though they have a potato stuck in their throat, and it's kind of true. So they are harder to understand,
uh,
even though technically the language is not any. Well, okay, real quick, or I'm gonna try to make it quick.
sure.
Norwegian and Danish are really similar in terms of grammar and the written language.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Norwegian and Swedish are really similar in the way we pronounce our words.
Okay.
But basically, where the biggest changes happened since the old days is that Danish, the Danish way of pronouncing their language has changed well more than the other Scandinavian languages. Probably because they've been influenced by Germany, which is right below them, and so
Hmm.
so their way to pronounce has changed in a way that has made it a little more difficult for the rest of us to understand them in that way. Meanwhile, the Swedish language has changed the most in terms of kind of our grammar and our text kind of has changed more because we have well, I think I talked at some point about the three extra letters that we have after the alphabet.
Hmm.
Like after Z or after Z comes A with a circle, A with two dots, and A with and O with two dots. In Swedish, however, in both Danish and Norwegian, those three letters are well, the A with the circle is the same, but the A with two dots is instead kind of a letter that looks like both an E and an A at the same time. And the Swedish O with two dots is instead an O with a diagonal line going through it. So like Swedish has changed more kind of in our letters because we have like our own letters kind of. Plus, I think our grammar is more unique compared to the other two. At least just looking at these three kind of mainland Scandinavian countries. Icelandic today, however, is supposedly the most similar to Old Norse because of that being a pretty isolated island. Their language hasn't
Ah,
changed as much since the old days, which is pretty cool. So if you want to just kind
yeah,
of get an idea of what Old Norse sounded like, go to Iceland, listen to the people there.
okay.
It's obviously not. Obviously, it has changed since then, but not nearly as much as the rest of the Scandinavian languages. So that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I hope so. But yeah, I was just so happy that we, that, well,
We
this
got backstory for her.
this
We,
book,
we
yeah,
were
it allowed
asking
us
for
to get to
backstory.
know her better and the
Right.
backstory and everything. Yeah. And I really appreciate her character now. I love what we got, and yeah, she has become a character that I really enjoy. One of my favorite parts with her, or no, I would say my number one favorite part with her, from this book, or well, from the whole series so far, because obviously this book did her best so far.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite one was really the very end, when she knew that Gardar was going to die from his injuries, and but she stayed strong, and she told him about their son and all of that, kind of in order to let him pass on in peace. And yeah, I don't know, that whole scene and seeing her do that for him, even though it was really tough for her, was, yeah, I'll say hands down my favorite moment from her so far.
Yeah, holding Gardar in her arms at the last page was kind of got me choked up a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't care so much for Gardar. I mean, I sympathize for all he's been through and as a slave and everything, but he's not
Mm.
like a character that that I got really attached to. But Arnheid,
Mm.
and I guess I can't say I'm attached to her, but I just sympathize and feel for all the crap she's had to go through
Yeah.
in becoming a slave and losing her child. And,
Yeah.
on top of all that, now she bears the child of Kentel, Kettle.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
and it's there's so much tragedy going on with her life, so you really feel for her here.
Really. Yeah. I'm also I'm excited to see kind of what comes of the whole, well, the deal, well, yeah, that she's pregnant with Kettle's child, like, because I imagine some interesting drama could come from that, especially considering, like, well, the position that she's in at the very end of this book,
Hmm.
where, yeah, she's about to be taken by the guests, and I mean, they're not going to kill her, but they're going to at least tie her up or something, I imagine.
You don't think she loses the child, do you?
I mean, well, I could imagine several reasons as to why she might.
Like, add add more tragedy upon tragedy.
Right, yeah. Like, true, yeah.
Yikes.
That's definitely one thing that could happen. But also, well, for example, Kettle's wife, I don't know, does she know about it? If she finds out, how's she gonna react?
Fair. Good
Like stuff
point.
like that.
For some reason, it makes me feel that Keto wants the child. Like she specifically mentioned that Keto
Mm,
wanted that.
yeah.
So unless he's keeping it secret from his wife, which is possible.
Mm.
But how do you keep that secret from your wife? Eventually, she's gonna find out.
At some point, yeah.
So and maybe that point is now. But I also got the feeling that maybe she was aware, or that everyone was aware.
Mm, yeah.
But maybe, yeah, maybe I'm wrong, and maybe she will be. She will feel the scorn of Ketzel's wife, the old bag,
Mm,
whatever,
right.
whatever Snake calls her, old
Yeah,
god
right.
or whatever.
Uh-huh.
So you were mentioning the part of the book that you liked the most for her.
Mm,
For me, it was the point where she was telling about her backstory and saying, I wish he would have weathered the storm,
mm,
um, and that sometimes it's best just to ignore it. But then she kind of goes against what she was saying and
mm.
goes to the man who has become a storm.
Right.
Um, but I like that because it just kind of showed that she still loved this man.
Mm,
And at the same time yearned for her old life, of course. Um, So it just kind of made her character more complex. And I also think she told that story to Einar because uh, wanted to keep him out of it. It's not his problem; it's her problem, and not in a mean kind of way, but kind of a try to keep him and everyone else safe.
Yeah, Arnheid was great. This book.
Absolutely.
Moving on. Well, I think I want to talk about Gardar next because we just talked about Arnheid. So after 5 years a slave, he killed his master and ran away to reunite with his wife and child. And man, just like what a tragic story he had.
Yeah.
And just, like short from our perspective, like it was all told in this book.
Hmm.
But damn, so tragic.
For sure. And I can't imagine he had a great life as a slave.
No.
Um, I mean, I don't think you could argue any of these people have had great lives, but
Mm.
it's definitely a difference between how Ketil treats his slaves versus who I forget the name of Gardar's master, but
Yeah, yeah.
um, yeah, it drove him to madness.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the madness necessarily started when he went to battle or became a slave. It gradually happened because of how he was treated, I believe.
I can imagine that. Yeah, and yeah, I think you're right. Ketil, while I think it is bad in and of itself that he is a slave owner,
Uh
he
huh.
he has got to be better than most slave owners as far as how he treats the slaves.
Right.
I'm quite sure. Um, but I actually think Gardar had a similar journey as Thorfinn in some ways. Well, at least in the sense that they both in their past they would gladly venture into battle, but after
Hmm.
spending time as slaves, they came to understand how valuable peace is. I think they both had that journey, because we learned at the very end of Gardar's life how he didn't want their son to become a Viking or become a warrior. He wanted to. At least the vibe I got was that he very much wanted to embrace more of a pacifist kind of lifestyle from that point on, and be a family man, be with his wife and child.
Yeah. No. Definitely how it concludes. I feel.
Mm. So I thought it was interesting with that in mind to see, I guess, what could have become potentially of Thorfinn if he had, well, if he had ended up in different circumstances and stuff like that, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as I said, he was a slave for 5 years, or at least, yeah, because their son was one when they, well,
Right.
when shit hit the fan, and
Mm-hmm.
then now he was supposed to have been 6 years old now, so he was a slave for 5 years, but he felt like it was more like 7 or 8 years had passed. So like, yeah, and I think that just goes to show how bad everything was for him to feel like it had been much longer of a time than it actually had been.
Well, like you mentioned, he says that he wished he would have stayed with his son and his wife. So that's great and all, but would that have made a difference? Like if maybe they wouldn't have been separated through slavery, but I'm pretty sure they would have. But like if let's say he was the only one that Gardar was the only one to stay there, and then the rest of the men went,
Well,
and then
yeah, if he was the
like
only one,
would he been able to protect? I guess if they had decided not to bother, like the entire village not to bother,
right,
then okay, that makes sense.
right, yeah, yeah, exactly, and
Uh,
I think that's, yeah, yeah, but no, you're right. If he had been the only, I guess, man to stay, then yeah, it wouldn't have made much of a difference. But if everyone had stayed, I think they would have had a good chance because I'm pretty sure it's easier to defend than to attack.
but there was a lot of gory scenes involving with him. Like there's
Uh
been
huh.
gore in this series. This one was just particularly gory, at least in my recollection. It just when you first see him and he kills the slave family, yeah, there's some pretty
Mm,
grotesque stuff,
yeah.
like brains coming out, kind of thing. It's like um, and then he bites the neck off the one of the guards
Yeah.
or the guest or whatever. Like, ugh, ugh.
That was
No, no, no.
fun.
Yeah, so gross stuff, but definitely the I guess consequences of, of everyone's actions per se,
Yeah.
and also just uh, Gardar's messed up mind at the time.
Right. I mean, I can't blame him. I don't think I can blame him. He was mistreated for 5 years straight, and he had enough of it.
I mean, yeah, the fact that he lost his mind, like, yeah, I mean that is, but I also don't want to say like killing people is the okay thing to do. I
No.
don't know.
Well, if it's the only well, if
It
killing
would have. You're right. Like
people
that
is the
seemed to be
only
the only
way
way to.
to attain a life again. Well,
Yeah,
but yes, it's
I
difficult.
mean, it's obviously goes down to like philosophical
Mm,
uh, kind of discussions, I think, or
yes.
whatnot. But either way, he did what he did, and he was dang crazy, in my opinion.
I mean, I guess that is true. I really enjoyed his character though for the little time that he had. But moving on to Einar next.
So does this sink the Einar Arnheid ship? Like, is that is there just no chance of that ever happening?
I don't think it's completely sunk. It is pretty clear that he is infatuated with Arnheid.
hmm
It has been since the previous book, or well, no, since the end of book 4 even. But then when Gardar arrived and it became clear kind of what he was to her, Einar only wanted to help Arnheid because
Absolutely.
he wanted her to be happy,
Yeah.
and so I guess with that in mind, I can see why the ship might be sunk. And I appreciate that this side of Einar, like
Yeah.
it's very mature.
Agreed.
However, well, seeing as Gardar is dead now,
hmm
you know, she's available. No, it's like, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, in the previous book, it definitely seemed like she had some kind of interest in him as well. So I
yeah.
don't think it's just a one-sided affection. So obviously, I wouldn't expect anything to happen right away, but if they do get enough time, which definitely isn't a certainty, considering what's going on right now, but if they do get enough time, then maybe I think there's a pretty good chance that they could become a thing.
You're right. I think the other reason why I would, worry about that kind of stuff is uh she's pregnant with Kettle's child.
Hmm.
Um and so on top of the fact that she was running away with her husband, it just kind of made the whole situation hard for that, I guess, ship, if you will, or at
Fair.
least his hope. But
Mm.
no, I think you're right that uh there's still chance for that to grow, and we don't know exactly uh, what's going to go down. Will they be, they being Kettle and Arnheid, would they be able to raise the child,
Mm.
um, or does Einar have to become the foster father for the child, or is she not going to be able to give birth? There's
Right.
a lot of
Well,
a
it
lot of ifs, I guess.
really
I
is.
kind of hope it doesn't come to that. That seems just too much for the poor woman. But
Yeah.
um, you mentioned that Einar was mature for how he behaved
Mm.
during the whole situation, trying to get her free and whatnot. I feel like Kettle. I don't know. Would Kettle have acted the same way? Probably not. Like he's pretty a coward, pretty much a coward. We've established that, but
Right.
would he have taken the whole you know, her running away with her former husband
Oh no, I
or
don't think so
her
at all.
husband, I don't think he would have taken that well
No,
at all.
yeah, no, for sure.
So I mean, right now there's bigger things on the horizon, but it, I just wonder in the next book is how is that going to go down and
Mm-hmm.
all that jazz. But anyway,
Yes, yeah, definitely looking forward to Kettle's return to the farm because there's a lot to kind of get sorted out once he does get there. Once he does get back, it's
you're right.
it's the whole thing obviously with the Gardar, but there's also well Thorfinn's and Einar's involvements in everything that's been going on,
Yep.
which well depending on how Kettle kind of judges them, he might not actually give them the freedom that he had said that he would give them. So, yeah, that could all be difficult.
That's true too. But how much time are they going to have to even touch on that?
Yeah,
You
I think
know.
they'll have 3 days. At least that's what I think, because Canute had to wait 3 days for the Jomsvikings to assemble.
That's right. Good
So
point.
if they sail at the same speed, they will have 3 days before, like from Kettle arriving until Canute arriving. I think.
Maybe he won't grant them their freedom because he's so fearful about. We're jumping the gun on this, but maybe he's so fearful because the army is coming upon them, and
Mm,
so he's like, no, I can't have you free. I need you here.
right.
Uh, you have to work for me, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I mean either that or he's upset that they basically betrayed him.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So there is a lot of ways it could go. So yeah, just a lot of reasons to look forward to the next book. But let us actually talk about Leif Erikson next. So it's good to see he's back again. He's
Yeah.
back. He's been making these little appearances here and there, like kind of throughout. But again, he's back, and he's still looking for Thorfinn even after 3 more years. And he has an adopted son named Thorfinn. That was really funny.
Bug eyes.
Bug eyes, yes.
That's
uh,
yeah, it's hilarious. Like
yeah.
he basically freed someone just out of word of mouth, and nope,
It was,
wrong.
yeah, close, but not close enough. Uh, but I'm excited to see Leif get reunited with Thorfinn in the next book because I'm assuming they're going to meet again in the next book.
Yeah.
Seems pretty safe to say. Because like in this book, like these 2 volumes, like there was so much shit that happened, so much misery and just drama and things.
Mm,
As we've talked about how there's so many different ways that things can go wrong from now on out, like, and yeah, just a lot of bad things. But Leif Erikson was like this little kind of oasis of hope I felt in this book here. His kind of reintroduction, as well as the fact that he is on his way to Thorfinn now, is like this little spark of hope, of light.
hmm
So I
Agreed.
appreciate that.
So is Thorfinn too just a joke character at this point, or
Ah,
do you think he'll have anything to provide?
ooh, I I just assumed he was, yeah, as you said, going to be a little more like a joke character perhaps, but who knows?
Just going up to people, calling them "you dunderheaded ninny."
I did not expect. Well, for example, I didn't expect Oldmar to get as much depth as he got in this
Yeah,
volume, like in the
that's true.
previous one. So who knows? I guess about
You're right.
Thorfinn
Mm.
too. Who knows? Well, what do you think?
Oh, I. It depends on if Thorfinn 2 is on the ship currently with Leif and
Oh yeah,
Kettle family.
did we see him there? I don't remember if we saw him there.
I don't remember either.
He might not have been there. I
Because if he's
know,
not there, then I don't think he'd play much of a role.
right. The other guy, like the black-haired guy, though, was there. Like the guy that we saw, that we've seen before with Leif.
Is that his son? Like his actual son?
It's either that or some. Well, I can't remember. It might have been established like back in volume 3 or 4 or book 3 or 4, but I can't remember if. I feel like there was some kind of point made out of that. If it was whether it was his actual son or if it was another kind of adoption type deal. I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't see Thorfinn too, but maybe
Hmm.
he's still on the ship. I don't know.
Maybe he's also
Uh,
in one of the barrels.
yeah, who knows? Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not entirely sure, but he does seem like a character that could be interesting potentially, or just nothing at all, which
Right.
I'm totally fine with.
Yeah, we shall see. We shall see. Okay, then moving on to Kettle next.
So you had a bad day. You take it one down. I just feels like everything has been going wrong for this man. Just worst trip ever. Like,
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it started off bad and it ended off even worse.
yeah,
Yeah. At least it seems like he's at least gonna make it back to the farm all right. Because that was something I was fearing. You know, when he at the beginning of this book he left the farm to go to Yelling, and I was like, okay, something's gonna happen. He's not gonna come back,
uh,
and
mm-hmm,
so Thorfinn and Einar won't get their freedom because they need him to come back to free them. Kind of, that was
mm,
kind of my thought then. But it does seem like he will come back now, so I guess there is a little bit of hope. But since Knut and since Knut is following, yeah, things aren't looking good.
yeah. There's not a whole lot of moment for respite. It's like they get there and I guess they take care of some affairs, but then what they fortify themselves or they just get the heck out of there. I I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how they deal with all of that.
Right? Yeah. Exactly.
Hmm.
But I guess speaking of his journey, he tries to offer tribute to King Harold, I believe it was his name, right?
Uh,
Um,
or he had
or
done
no,
that before.
right? Well, but he tried to do that
Oh,
on his trip,
yeah. Oh, that's
but
true. Yeah, sorry,
Harold died,
that's right.
so he changed his plans. Okay, we'll do it to Canute. That'll work out, right? Um, I mean, he gave him the offering, but I think it just made him. We're like, okay, now I know who I'm gonna take from.
Yeah, yeah.
Then
Bad Knut.
so then it just all went downhill from there with his sons causing chaos and whatnot.
Oh yes, which wasn't really their fault. It was kind of
I will put some of
masterminded
the blame. Yeah,
by
you're right.
by Knut and Wulf.
You're right. I do think Thorgil went overboard big time,
Well, yes, that's fair.
but
That's fair.
yes, it was set up to yeah, put the blame on Kettle.
Yeah. Yep. Uh, Anything else on Kettle specifically?
No.
Then let's talk about Olmar next. He's still no swordsman
No,
after these 3 years that passed.
but he does
Um,
finally kill a man, and I think he regrets
True.
it.
Yeah, right. I definitely also got that feeling from that. He seems to be really deep in thought. That last time we
Hmm.
see him in this book when he's on Leif's ship, and like he's just like I don't know, his face is just different from how we've seen it before, and I don't think he says anything throughout that whole. Well, it's not a long scene, but he does stay silent, I think, throughout it, and he just he seems to be thinking, and he seems to be changing,
Right.
perhaps. At least I could imagine.
I get that same feeling, and I hope there's a significant change in him. You
Mm.
know, maybe this would be kind of crazy. Maybe he joins Thorfinn on his quest to create a peaceful village, in Vinland or something like that. That seems kind of crazy, but I don't know. Like,
Yeah, actually, I
if you
like
want to run
that.
away from the battle,
Uh,
and if he has a true change of heart, then maybe that's the place where he needs to go.
yeah.
I don't know if Kettle joins him or not. I really don't know what's going to happen to Kettle, but Omar, I'm kind of curious, and maybe I do want to see him go with Thorfinn.
Right. Actually, I definitely like that idea, and I could see, well, since at this point he seems to have, or at least he's in the process of coming to terms with the fact that he's not going to be a warrior, I think. And
Yeah.
he has been very adamant about not wanting to run the farm. Sure, he might change his mind, and perhaps he will want to do that again in the future, or want to do that in the future.
I mean,
But
I
you
don't know
know,
if he can run the farm with it, but it's going down. I mean, I don't know. I don't know.
true. Yeah, that's true. The farm might get taken over, for all we know.
Like, I don't know exactly how they take it over. Do they keep the people working, or do they put new people
Yeah.
in? I don't know. Anyway, yes, I understand what you're talking about.
So basically, if he's neither gonna be a warrior nor a farmer, then yeah, going with Thorfinn once they get out of this, however they get out of this, I think could be a fun or an interesting development, and I think he has, well, there are similarities with him and Thorfinn, in how they've both wanted to be warriors, but perhaps understood that that's not the way to go.
And Omar has a girl back home that I don't know if he's still seeing, but maybe they could start a family, and that could be how they
Hmm.
grow into a village or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I
I'm just
wonder.
spitting out ideas at this
3 years
point.
have passed, and their thing seemed kind of shaky 3 years ago. Who knows if they're still together, or
Hmm.
whatever? If they even were together to begin with, I don't know.
Well, they definitely weren't married. That's for sure.
No, yeah, that absolutely. And he was only 17 back then. But anyway, anything else on him?
No,
I don't have anything on Thorgil. Do you?
other than the fact that I feel like the man is pretty bloodlust, thirsty, crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Not like uh, Gardar, who was obviously uh, dealing with a lot of mental issues. I think Thorgil is just a very bloodthirsty man who has no sense of, I guess, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but doesn't really have anything to hold him back when it comes to violence. Um,
Oh yes.
but he's really happy to have this new enemy,
Yeah.
which is disturbing, and it kind of reminds me of Thorkel. Uh, and well, who would win in a fight between those two? I'm pretty sure Thorkel would, right? Is that fair to say?
My money's on Thorkel. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm there too.
But at least even though he is awful, it still feels kind of good to know that he's on his family's side. He's there
Yes, I am glad about
to
that.
protect
Yeah.
his brother and father. And
Like even when his dad is hiding in the barrel, he's just like, "Right, Dad, it's gonna be okay.
yeah.
Get out of the barrel. Come on." Like
Mhm.
it was kind of like father son wholesome kind
Yeah, totally.
of. But still, yeah, it's I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't be so put off by him massacring the 6 people, but or was it 5? I can't remember how many it was.
Well, regardless, I mean, yeah, he is he yeah, it was too much. He went too far.
But that's all I have on that.
Cool. Then let's talk about Canute next. An
Woohoo!
interesting little thing that we learned here at the start was how it seems like his brother Harold never really tried to compete with Knut, and like
I
and
know.
that was so interesting to learn that the brothers themselves, at least in the past, had never really been in conflict with each other. It was more so like the people taking their sides
Yeah.
caused the whole conflict. So that was a really interesting kind of, I guess, twist that we got here.
Honestly, it kind of wrecked my world because I was totally expecting there to be England versus Denmark, go, kind of
Yeah.
a situation, but it never happened. And Canute was like, I'm not going to let that happen.
Oh yeah, right.
Yeah. So, on top of the fact that they supposedly had great relationship growing up, Canute was just like, yeah, whatever. I'm no longer a child, and
Mm-hmm.
poisons him to death to make sure the kingdom doesn't fall into pieces or anything like that. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
So much to take in there. I get just real quick. I want to say that I guess I was totally wrong about well, not just that, but when we see Canute again, because I think we were talking last time. It was like, oh, maybe not until later on in this book, if that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's like 2 books later.
Right. Yeah, I
But
remember.
nope, it's like the very first chapter. Here we are, Canute. I was like, oh, all right.
Well,
I take a L on that one.
well,
But no, I'm really glad we got what we got, and it's just so fascinating to see his, I'd argue, descent into just being more ruthless,
yes.
conniving, all to get the thing that he desires, his paradise.
Right.
And it's almost, having righteous desires, but trying to reach those desires through any wicked means. And I still love Canute, and I think he's my favorite character still.
Okay.
Because of just how complicated and twisted he is right now. And I love his conversations with his, imaginary headless dad.
Yeah.
It's hilarious and thought-provoking and great, and just his mindset right now is fascinating.
Yeah, really getting to see that in this book really like made it more interesting because you understand how on the inside he's a total wreck, but he does a pretty good job of looking strong and collected on the outside.
Right. I think he's convincing himself that he's totally fine. He's got all this. He puts the crown on. He's like, this is nothing.
Right.
I got this. He's trying to fool himself. Kind of.
Yeah. But I wonder, I feel pretty confident kind of that this, descent, as you said, I think it's going to continue this way for him.
Yeah.
And I don't really see it changing direction. So I'm just excited to kind of see how far is he going to go eventually. Like how bad is he gonna get?
Jeez, man, it's crazy. Oh, that's crazy because you see him at the end of book 4 and taking the place of his father, and you kind of get the feeling that maybe he would actually fight against the will of the crown, and be able to get past all that. But now we're here at this moment, and it's like, maybe he is really, it surely does look like he's succumbing to that power and that curse.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and also he seems to be very aware of his similarities to his father.
That's true too.
So that's also interesting that he knows it, but still he keeps going.
Yeah.
And also the whole thing about he has this dream or this goal of creating like a paradise on Earth. And he says he's doing everything in the name of that kind of. And I don't think it's entirely false. However, I also do think, because there was a point in the book where it kind of implied that it was also in order to gain more power and become the Lord of the North Seas kind of. I think that also plays a part of it. It is kind of part of the curse of the crown and how that has changed him as well. Like, I don't know. He keeps saying he wants to create the paradise, but I fear that he might drift away from that kind of more and more, kind of slowly perhaps, into just wanting more power, more territory, more wealth.
Right. It could be the lies that he's telling himself, and just or kind of justifying it.
Right.
I'm doing it for this, but in reality, he's craving more and more power.
Yeah.
So we kind of touched on this earlier, but I just want to put it in this frame. We see another foil to Thorfinn as Thorfinn embraces his way of a true warrior, the way of a pacifist. Canute embraces the ruthlessness and violence of the crown for his paradise. They're both fighting for their visions of paradise, but they're going in totally opposite directions.
Yeah, right. It's great.
And I love it. Oh gosh, like honestly, after this book, I was really strongly considering putting Vinland Saga in probably my top 5 manga, and who knows, it may become one of my favorites depending on how it ends. But it is so good in my opinion.
Nice. Actually, I would say it is it is probably my number 5 in as far as like my favorite manga lists goes. So it is like, yeah, it has made my top 5 list just barely.
I'm glad we're on the same wavelength.
But yeah, now he is gonna go with about 100 men to Kettle's farm, and
To avoid taxing the people. Like, it's it's to avoid to make them mad.
it's for the good of the kingdom.
So long as your goals are noble, your means are beyond reproach.
Man.
Oh man, this is gonna be great. Can't
Right?
wait for the next book.
It is. Anything else on Canute, by the way?
I don't think I have anything else.
All right, then a little bit on Wulf.
Yeah.
The guy. Well, he had been working for Harald before, right? I think was implied.
I assume so. At least he was in yelling the whole time.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. But so yeah, now he seems to have taken on kind of the role of kind of an, I guess, advisor of sorts. Or no, like he's kind of captain of the guard or something, or whatever he is.
I don't know.
At least, yeah, he's working under Canute, and well, he seems to have a thing for Canute's sister Estrid. I have no like, maybe that's never gonna ever come back again. Maybe neither of those two characters are ever gonna be in the story again.
Who knows?
That's just something I took note of because who knows?
It's funny. It's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Will Estrid ever come back? I don't know. Like, are we ever gonna go back to the capital again? Unless Canute goes back. I guess if Canute's there, then maybe. But
right.
Will Thorfinn and whatever happens with his story, will that ever need to go to the capital? Like, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Not necessarily, I wouldn't say. Since now everyone's supposedly going to Kettle's farm.
Right?
So, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe they're just side characters.
Right.
Unless Wulf does go with Canute to.
I think he will.
Well, is Canute actually going to the farm? Have we established that, or is he just summoning the Jom's Vikings?
I think it was implied that Canute and Wulf and 30 of Wulf's men plus 70 Jom's Vikings, including Floki, they're all going. So.
Oh, we're getting Floki. Oh, here we go.
Yeah, Floki's coming back. By the way, was that all of the characters for this book?
Yes. I have a couple I want to mention, but there's more prediction stuff.
Cool. Yeah, but yes, then let's talk about predictions. And I think as we were kind of already going on about, like, the next book, it really feels like it's going to be a big one. It seems like a lot of the main characters from throughout the story so far are going to gather at the farm in the next, in the next 2 volumes, the next book. And it just makes it feel really exciting because on one side we have Ketil, Thorgil, Olmar, Leif, I guess is kind of on their side, kind of, plus his crew or whatever. We have Snake if he's alive. He's probably alive.
Oh, I think he's alive. I think he was just unconscious.
I think right. I think so too. Snake and the rest of the guests. Like we have like that whole side, and then the other side we got King Canute, Wulf, Floki, and about 100 other men coming over there. And then Thorfinn and Einar aren't necessarily on a side, but I think if they were to take a side, they would have to side with the farm, right? Yeah,
for sure. There's so many potential because if Floki's there, then maybe they finally get, or Thorfinn finally finds the man who is behind his father's death,
right?
And it would be so fascinating to see how he comes to terms with that now. And maybe he kind of have a slip up in some way. I don't know. I kind of hope he doesn't have a slip up. I hope he takes it hard, but also he's able to get over that. But anyway, I'm not sure. I don't know. I don't know if he's gonna go, if Yukimura's gonna go that route with the story or not.
Right. I just wonder how Thorfinn is going to ever find out that Floki was, I guess, ultimately the cause of his dad's death. Like, yeah.
It would definitely have to come from Floki himself.
Right.
Either he recognizes Thorfinn somehow, some way, or I don't know. I don't know how else it would be brought up.
Mm.
Um, Another character that I think could maybe join the fray,
Hmm?
Thorkel.
Well, yeah, yeah. Yeah, he wasn't at all in this book, and I was wondering kind of, well, what's gonna happen there. I don't see really how he would end up at the farm.
Like maybe he joins because he sees there's action, so he decides to go.
Well,
Uh,
I mean,
and I don't
yeah.
think he's too keen on what Canute is doing in general. So this could be a great way to have Thorkel and again
Mm,
Thorfinn meet up, and
uh,
maybe Thorfinn is able to convince him of his way of the warrior. You know,
yeah.
like the
Oh,
true way of the warrior, and maybe he goes with Thorfinn. I mean, I assuming eventually goes to Vinland, maybe.
with Thorkel.
But
Ooh,
yeah, wouldn't that be interesting?
that
But
would that would
of
be
course,
interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Thorkel would much prefer, at least right now, would much prefer dying on the battlefield. So who knows?
Right. Yeah, yeah, those are some interesting, I guess, ideas as to where his character might go. I mean, at least the thing that was kind of, I guess, built up in the previous book about, well, his dislike for Knut, that's
Hmm.
got to at least at some point, become relevant again, I feel.
Right?
I'm just not sure if it's gonna happen this soon, or I don't know.
Hmm.
Or well, there has been time has passed. We don't know when, like, when we saw him last time. I guess it might have been also in 1018, but we don't. I don't remember exactly if that little scene we got was in that year or if it was maybe a little bit before. But we don't know exactly what his life has been like over the past 3 years, um,
Right.
or the past like 4 years maybe even. So like, what if he ended up rejoining the
Yums
Jomsvikings?
Vikings. Yeah.
And if he
Yeah.
did, then yeah, he definitely has a really good chance of actually, yeah,
Right.
coming to the farm with them. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, I like this idea actually now.
I mean, we'll see. I think it could be a good way to bring him back into the story,
Hmm.
versus just him appearing at the castle or kingdom, whatever they call it,
Mm,
yelling.
right, right,
Um, yeah. So
for sure.
at the very least, I'm very interested to hear opinion what opinions Thorkill has about Canute right now,
Mm,
um,
yes.
and also what how he will take or when he sees Thorfinn, what his views on it. Because before he
Mm,
was like, oh, you don't know the way of the warrior, like you're not like your father at all. But
right.
now, like surely he could see his father in him.
I think
I would
so.
hope.
Right. Yeah. At least, yeah. At least the way his father was by the end of the
Yeah.
time that he knew Thorkel, for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Really, really exciting. Hmm. I have one last little small, probably completely
Oh,
pointless thing. As
go for it.
it's not really a prediction. It's more like I wonder if we'll see this character again. It's the guy who was just really crazy good at flipping a coin onto things,
That yeah,
like
that was
into
pretty
that guy's
sick.
eye, and also like at some
Uh
butterflies. I
huh.
wonder if are we gonna see? Are we gonna is he gonna come back? He was kind of quirky. I
Dude, you're cool. Like,
like that. That was, yeah, I mean, it's a sick move. Uh, yeah. Are we gonna see him again? I have no idea. Maybe he's among the 30 men that Wulf is bringing, because it seemed like he was working for Wulf, like he was one of Wulf's guys. It
true.
seemed like, so maybe he will be one of the men that come to the farm,
Yeah.
and he'll bring his coins with him as weapons. But yeah, that's all I had.
Svirkel, I wonder, since he's so close on his deathbed,
Right.
uh, I wonder if he'll make it past the next book.
Mm.
Um, it really depends. And then also, I want to see him and Snake's relationship,
Yes.
uh, where it kind of started, because Svirkel literally offers him his farm, at
Hmm.
least his section of the farm, uh, to Snake. I mean, you don't do that unless you have a close connection with someone. And yeah, he was reading the Bible for him, and that's great and all. But I don't know. I feel like there should be a little bit more to it than that.
I think so as well. Yeah. they, even though it's been like they both kind of played off as it's not a big deal, I feel like their relationship
That's
has
definitely in
like
character for them.
exactly right, exactly. So it seems like there is more, mm, yeah, there's more of a bond between them than either of them want to admit.
Yeah. And then lastly, just I guess I don't know. It's hard. I had it because I was typing this down. I was like, how do I express this?
Oh,
Where do they go from here? Like you have this entire potential battle that happens. Do they run away? And if so, where? Um, do they go to a different part of Denmark? Do they try to run away to England?
hmm.
Does Thorfinn go with Leif and they go to Iceland? Um, I don't know, but it'll be fun to find out. And I don't know if it's gonna happen in the next book or not, but we shall see.
Yeah, like, yeah, whether they end up retreating or if they end up fighting to the death or if they end up fighting and winning. Like
That would be interesting. Like honestly, of all the uh, possibilities, I find them actually beating back the king's men not very possible.
yeah,
Uh,
like yeah, statistically it seems, yeah, since they're bringing
right?
like 100 men or 100, like 102 or whatever. Uh,
Yeah.
Although they have a lot of very capable fighters on the farm,
True.
you know.
I think it's enough to escape. I think that's fair.
Mm, mm.
Uh, I also wonder if Quetzal's gonna live. I don't
Ah,
know.
right, right. That's fair.
Like what does invading of someone's farmland involve? And taking it as royalty property. Um, do you have to kill the previous owner? I don't know. Can't wait to find out.
Yeah, yeah, same, same. I'm again, as I said at the beginning, this book has left me definitely the most excited, that I have been after one of these books so far. So yeah, can't wait to read book 7.
Same.
So, do you have any closing thoughts or words?
No. I love the direction where the story's going.
Yes.
That's it.
For sure, for sure. Well then, if you enjoy our content, you can follow us on Twitter at Umami Manga, and it would be lovely if you'd like to support us by either rating our show on the podcast platforms or subscribing to our channel Umami Manga on YouTube. If you like this episode, please share it with anyone you think might enjoy it too. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time when we'll talk about volumes 13 and 14. Bye bye.
See you later. No, that's all I have on Arnheid. Arnheid. Dang it.
Yep.
It's so funny because I'm in my head. I'm like, say Arnheid. No, Arnheid.
Yeah. It's the same sound as Einar and
I know. I keep telling myself that when I
Leif.
read the book,
Yeah, yeah.
but for some reason my butt is like, no, hide. Why?
Yeah. I know I said I think I accidentally said Arnheid as well last time at some point.
Arnheid will be my. Dang it, Arnheid will be my great. I even was like, say Arnheid.
This is a meme
She-
now.
She will be my greatest nemesis.
Oh yes.
The name.